Mục tiêu phát triển bền vững là kế hoạch chi tiết để đạt được một tương lai tốt đẹp hơn, bền vững cho tất cả mọi người. Đó là thông số về những thách thức toàn cầu đang phải đối diện, bao gồm đói nghèo, sự bất bình đẳng, vấn đề khí hậu, sự suy giảm về chất lượng môi trường, sự thịnh vượng, hòa bình và công lý. Những mục tiêu được thực hiện tiếp nối trên tôn chỉ, không để bất cứ ai tụt hậu lại phía sau. Trong bối cảnh Việt Nam, mục tiêu phát triển bền vững được thực hiện phù hợp với đất nước theo kế hoạch hành động quốc gia định hướng đến năm 2030 trên cơ sở mục tiêu phát triển bền vững tháng 5 năm 2017. Là một phần của tiến trình này, Việt Nam chuẩn bị bản báo cáo tự nguyện của quốc gia cho buổi thuyết trình tại Diễn đàn Chính trị cấp cao của Liên Hợp Quốc năm 2018 về phát triển bền vững. Tại đây, Việt Nam đã được đánh giá cao. Việt Nam cũng hoàn toàn tự hào khi đã đạt được những thành tựu trong mục tiêu phát triển bền vững. Chính phủ Việt Nam đã hoàn thiện môi trường pháp lý và khuyến khích các nhà đầu tư nước ngoài cũng như khối tư nhân trong nước đầu tư, kinh doanh trên cơ sở phát triển bền vững. Hơn thế nữa, huy động nguồn lực của khối tư nhân cũng đang được cho là việc làm cần thiết hiện nay.
As a responsible member country of the United Nations, Vietnam has been actively participating in the implementation of the Global Sustainable Development Goals. In Vietnam, the private sector's role has been more important in development process. So now let's talk about it with our special guest today. I'd like to introduce you Mr. Hao Su, UN Assistant Secretary General, UNDP Assistant Administration, and Regional Director for Asia and Pacific. And Ambassador Perry Hobart, Swedish Ambassador to Vietnam. Thank you so much for coming to our roundtable on Nhân TV today. And Mr. Hao, what's your first and general impression about Vietnam?
This is my third visit to Vietnam in the last 5 years. I can say that every time I come here, I'm very impressed by the dynamism that I've seen, in the society and in the economy. So I'm always very excited to come here.
Mm-hmm. And Ambassador, I heard that you work and live in Vietnam in over last 2 years. And how about your feeling about Vietnam?
Yes, you are right. I've been here for more than 2 years now, but I did my first visit to Vietnam in 1996.
Yes.
And I can't refrain from referring to that period, and of course such a dramatic change during these 20 plus years. And if you read some of the international polls, I just came across one recently regarding which country in the world has the most positive approach to the future, and I think Vietnam was absolutely in the top, feeling both that life has become so much better, but also feeling that yes, the future for my children and the future for this country will be a lot better than today. And compare that with my own country, Sweden.
And even you have the Vietnamese statehood number.
Yeah, correct.
It's very surprised. And Mr. Hao, as a director of the Regional Bureau for Asia Pacific region, what do you estimate about the results of the sustainable development in Vietnam in recent years?
Yeah. I think Vietnam, has been a strong performer, during the time of the Millennium Development Goals. Vietnam's achievement in social development, in environmental protection has been very impressive. Now we are in the age of implementing sustainable development goals. And we can already say that although it is only 2-3 years into the implementation, and there are already areas that Vietnam has been doing extremely well in terms of poverty reduction, right? In terms of universal access to education, 99% coverage of electricity, and so forth in many areas. Vietnam has already achieved some of the SDGs. And Vietnam has also demonstrated its commitment by implementing a stringent system of monitoring and reporting. In July this year, Vietnam has reported its progress in implementing SDGs at the UN's high-level political forum in New York.
Yes.
So I think these are all says a lot about Vietnam's commitment to implementation of the SDGs.
And have you seen the achievements and the problems in the development process in Vietnam?
Yeah. I think like any developing country, there are always development challenges. Vietnam is no exception. And I think one issue that we know is that there's regional differences, right? There's a disparity, in terms of the level of poverty, right? And I understand that in the mountainous areas, where many of the ethnic minorities live, the rate of poverty is 3 to 4 times higher,
Yes.
than the national average, right?
Yes.
And there are always also, for example, vulnerability to disasters, because on average every year, Vietnam loses about 0.75% of the GDP, to natural disasters, right?
What do you think about the most challenges and difficulties Vietnam have to face and to find the key to solve?
I think one of the key challenges is really to mobilize sufficient resources, to implement, the development projects
Yes.
that will help Vietnam to achieve all of the SDGs. We just released a report yesterday with the government that focused on the state of development financing in Vietnam. While Vietnam is doing extremely well in terms of foreign direct investment and in terms of receiving remittances from overseas, Vietnam does have challenges in mobilizing its domestic resources,
Yes.
both public and private, for its development effort. For example, the domestic private investment in terms of the total flow of development finance is about 26%, I believe. It is lower than the 31% of the ASEAN average, right? So that means that there's really a lot of room and opportunity for mobilizing more domestic resources for Vietnam's development.
Yes, Ambassador, do you think Vietnam should balance the public and the private sector
I think,
resource?
yes, balance the resources. I think one of the beauties with the Sustainable Development Goals that we have now, that this is not only the role or the responsibility of the government, this is really the whole societies that are stepping in. And I think Vietnam is doing a very important job in trying to opening up its economy. It's more and more a market economy, and also trying to equitizing some of the state-owned enterprises. I think the key when it comes to the private sector, and I see that is happening, that the private sector does not necessarily have to wait for government instructions. I think I agree 100% with Mr. Su's comment regarding the development we have seen in this country, and with the growing middle class and with the growing consumers' power, I think it's up to the business sector also to respond to this. If you just allow me to elaborate a little bit, when the things I see that really concerns, not least the urban citizens of this country, is security issues regarding private life. It's air safety, it's water safety, food safety, traffic safety, all these things.
Many aspects.
Many aspects. And here, the private sector can do a lot. And especially by meeting the demand of the consumer power. I think this is my prediction of Vietnam in the next 10 years. Companies that will be able to respond to an increasing consumer power will both do good business and also be able to fulfill the sustainable development.
Tại Hội nghị về phát triển bền vững năm 2018 diễn ra đầu tháng 7 năm 2018, Thủ tướng Nguyễn Xuân Phúc khẳng định phát triển bền vững là trách nhiệm chung của hệ thống chính trị, toàn xã hội và mỗi cá nhân. Tôi đề nghị chúng ta cùng chung tay thực hiện tốt tất cả các mục tiêu này. Xuyên suốt hơn 30 năm qua, chiến lược phát triển bền vững của Việt Nam luôn được xây dựng dựa trên 3 trụ cột, gồm bền vững kinh tế, bền vững xã hội và bền vững môi trường, đồng thời kiên trì thực hiện 17 mục tiêu phát triển bền vững mà Liên Hợp Quốc đề ra. Về kinh tế, sau 30 năm, nền kinh tế Việt Nam đã đạt được nhiều thành tựu quan trọng. Việt Nam hiện đang là nước có thu nhập trung bình và đang phấn đấu để sớm trở thành nước có thu nhập trên trung bình, hướng đến thu nhập cao trong 2 thập niên tới.
Ngày càng có nhiều doanh nghiệp thông qua những cái sáng kiến, những cái chương trình hành động để biến 17 cái mục tiêu phát triển bền vững, 169 các cái chỉ tiêu cụ thể thành hiện thực và đưa nó vào cái đời sống thực tiễn trong cái đời sống kinh doanh của doanh nghiệp mình. Có thể nói như từ cái mục tiêu thứ nhất là xóa đói cho đến giảm nghèo, cho đến những cái mục tiêu về bình đẳng giới, rồi ứng phó với biến đổi khí hậu, rồi bảo vệ môi trường, duy trì đa dạng sinh học vân vân, thì tất cả những cái mục tiêu đó đều được các cái doanh nghiệp Việt Nam thực hiện mà với cái số lượng ngày càng đông và chất lượng ngày càng cao.
Tuy đã gặt hái được nhiều thành quả, nhưng vẫn còn đó nhiều những tồn tại mà chúng ta chưa giải quyết được để tiến tới mục tiêu phát triển bền vững. Trong đó nổi cộm những vấn đề như ô nhiễm môi trường và nguy cơ cạn kiệt tài nguyên. Tồn tại này đã làm cho Việt Nam nằm trong danh sách các nước chịu ảnh hưởng của biến đổi khí hậu, có thu nhập bình quân đầu người chưa cao, chất lượng cuộc sống và an sinh xã hội còn thấp. Việc tăng trưởng kinh tế chưa đi đôi với tiến bộ và công bằng xã hội. Và còn đó nhiều tiêu chí khác mà chúng ta cần quan tâm để đạt được.
Thứ nhất là anh muốn bền vững thì trong cái quản trị kinh doanh thì thứ nhất là hầu hết các doanh nghiệp ở Việt Nam thiếu một chiến lược chung và dài hạn. Chúng ta đều có những chiến lược ngắn hạn thôi. Đấy là lý do mà chúng ta không bền vững. Hiện nay Đảng, Chính phủ đã quan tâm rồi thì các doanh nghiệp Việt Nam phải xây dựng cái nguồn lực của mình.
Để thực hiện mục tiêu phát triển bền vững, các nguồn nhân lực xã hội và người dân cũng phải chung tay cùng chính phủ. Trong đó, khu vực kinh tế tư nhân, nơi chiếm tới 95% số lượng doanh nghiệp Việt Nam, được xác định là thành phần có ảnh hưởng to lớn tới mục tiêu phát triển bền vững của Việt Nam. Chính vì vậy, không khó hiểu khi chính phủ đặt ra những ưu tiên cho khu vực tư nhân trong mục tiêu phát triển bền vững của đất nước, tầm nhìn đến năm 2030.
And Mr. Howard, what do you think about the advantages of the private sector resource in Vietnam?
I think private sector, has been the engine of growth, in almost all society, and in a typical developing country, the private sector really account for about 60% of the GDP, right? In Vietnam, this share is also quite significant. I understand, about 40%. And also in Asia in general, private sector or businesses in general provides about 90% of the jobs, and this particularly from small and medium enterprises.
Yes.
So the role of private sector is absolutely important in economic growth. And I think, as the ambassador said, sustainable development goals, right, provides a business opportunity essentially, right? In urban areas, there are a lot of smart city applications, right, using remote sensing, technology, to monitor pollution, using local sensors to, help, deal with traffic congestions and so forth. These are all potential business opportunities, right, for, businesses that have visions, right, to see SDGs as a part of their future, So.
Yes. Sweden is a successful example. How you have combined sustainability with the economic growth while prioritizing the SDGs or the Agenda 2030 of the UN. And what are some of the lessons we can draw, especially for a country like Vietnam?
I think the first lesson is, and you said it yourself in your question, that there is no contradiction, or it doesn't have to be any contradiction between economic growth and sustainable development. And I think there are some key issues here, and we were onto it a little earlier. I think access to information, openness and transparency is key in order to enable the whole population. I think you really need to get a whole country or the majority of the population engaged in having a sustainable development. And long before these goals were initiated, I remember when I was a young schoolboy, it was a very strong movement in Sweden called Keep Sweden Clean. Maybe this is not solving neither my country's nor the whole world's problem, but we really got something into the mind of school kids, that all this trash we see, let's pick it up. Or all these plastic bottles we are using, why do we use plastic? Or having a mindset, and I have 2 teenagers at home, and they are really they are my environment police, because they are so concerned and so curious when it comes to what are we buying, why are we buying it, why are we throwing it away. So this is one example, and I think one of the experiences we have that I would love to share with Vietnam. And here I'm happy to say we have been doing a lot with the UN system in Vietnam, and not least the UNDP, with a number of initiatives to reach out to young Vietnamese and to work with the younger generation,
Yes,
so they change behavior.
7 day,
7-day challenge, but
right?
also water quality
Right.
and equality issues, all sort of issues.
Right.
And what do you think about the policies of Vietnam to develop the source, the potential of the private sector?
I think to address the issue of private sector development, my view is that you do need to understand where the Vietnamese society has come from, right? Because before the reform, the Vietnamese economy, is all state-owned.
Yes.
Right? So now the country has transformed quite significantly. But there is a question, the struggle, I think, between how much the public sector should weigh and how much the private sector should weigh, right? But there's a reality that there's not sufficient private sector investment in the economy, right? Compared to many other countries in ASEAN. Okay, some country, you see 50, 60, 80% of private sector's share, in direct investment, right? So that means, more can be done, right, in terms of incentives, right, for the private sector, to invest in business development. And one of the recommendations of the report we released yesterday is, to, call attention to the question of quality versus quantity, right? Because when, some developing countries, developed and in its early stages, they did everything possible to attract investment, right? Any investment, even those that are polluting, okay, the environment, and they attracted investment by offering tax incentives and so forth, right? A lot of attractive packages. Mm-hmm. But as Vietnam has developed, right, into a middle-income country, right? As now the Vietnamese government is seeking to transform the nature of the economy, right, to deal with the Industry 4.0 and so forth. There's a question of what kind of investment do we want to attract to Vietnam, right? Is it only based on incentives, or is it based on some other, attractions, right, such as the quality of, your workforce?
Công ty Heineken Việt Nam được thành lập năm 1991. Trong 27 năm qua, Heineken Việt Nam là một trong những doanh nghiệp luôn lấy mục tiêu phát triển bền vững làm trọng tâm, chiến lược phát triển của mình. Hầu hết các nhà máy của Heineken Việt Nam nấu bia sử dụng 100% năng lượng tái tạo từ nông nghiệp, vừa giúp giảm thiểu lượng CO2 phát thải, vừa cắt giảm kinh phí chi cho nguồn nguyên nhiên liệu, đồng thời đem tới nguồn thu nhập cho người dân.
Within Heineken Vietnam, sustainability is really part of our core business. We choose green in order to really to protect. Within Heineken Vietnam, sustainability is really an integral part of our business, and it's an integral part of our sustainability strategy that focuses on reduction of CO2 emissions, responsible consumption, reduction of water consumption, to work for the communities in Vietnam, all in order to brew a better Vietnam together.
Heineken Việt Nam là một ví dụ điển hình cho việc theo đuổi mục tiêu phát triển bền vững. Tuy nhiên, con đường Heineken đi không phải doanh nghiệp nào ở Việt Nam muốn thực hiện cũng được. Nguyên nhân bởi các thể chế kinh tế thị trường, chất lượng nguồn nhân lực, kết cấu hạ tầng ở nước ta vẫn là những điểm nghẽn cản trở sự phát triển.
Nếu chúng ta đi theo hướng chộp giật thì các doanh nghiệp đấy sẽ không đủ độ cạnh tranh với các quốc gia có một nền tảng bài bản, bền bỉ như các quốc gia khác. Họ đã có nhiều năm về vấn đề công nghệ, họ có kiến thức về kinh doanh, họ có hiểu biết về thị trường và đặc biệt họ cũng có nguồn đầu tư vốn rất lớn. Vậy thì con đường lớn nhất của chúng ta đi lên là con đường chọn ra những cái ngách mà phát triển bền vững. Đã phát triển bền vững thì nơi nào họ cũng cần, không chỉ quốc gia chúng ta cần mà thị trường trên thế giới cũng rất cần đến.
Trước những bất cập này, nhiều giải pháp đã được đưa ra nhằm giải quyết bài toán khó cho phát triển bền vững, trong đó có Nghị quyết 19/2018 NQCP. Theo đó, Chính phủ đặt mục tiêu tập trung cải thiện các chỉ số môi trường kinh doanh để năm 2018 tăng thêm từ 8 đến 18 bậc trên bảng xếp hạng của Ngân hàng Thế giới. Cần hoàn thiện hệ thống pháp luật đủ mạnh, thực thi một cách nghiêm minh, khách quan và công bằng với tất cả mọi đối tượng. Đặc biệt quan trọng đó là ưu tiên phát triển giáo dục và đào tạo, khoa học công nghệ, một giải pháp căn bản để phát triển bền vững.
But there was a limitation. The Vietnamese private sector's contribution to the SDGs or the sustainability agenda has been low. From your observation working and living as a Swedish ambassador to Vietnam over the last 2 years, what could have been some of the reasons limiting the participation of the private sector in Vietnam in this development process?
I think, as the Assistant Secretary General said, it's very important to be aware of where this country comes from and where Vietnam comes from. Sweden has been here for a very long time, soon 50 years. We established diplomatic links already in 1969 as the first Western country. And I think we were very engaged in the Doi Moi process, not implementing it, but advising. And I know many Vietnamese leaders were seeking the advice of the then social democratic leadership of my country. And I think there is an awareness of the role of the private sector, but I want to come back to the issue of the consumer power issue. That very often I see a private sector that is not perhaps emphasizing enough the similarities or the linkages between actually doing good business and being profitable and doing good. And as anywhere in the world, young and globalized, as I think Vietnam is, it's a very international country, becoming more and more an international country, are very aware of these things. And I think private sector that would be more into trying to find both sustainable and price-worthy, not over-costly things could have a fantastic market ahead. There are some interesting developments, efforts to try to create electrical motorbikes or even electrical cars in a couple of years. I think that's key, but I think listening to the demands of what people want could be a key role here.
Mm-hmm. Listening to the people demand. An ambassador, in order to mobilize and maximize the resource and the contribution of the private sector in Vietnam, which incentives would and should be used?
Some observations where I also see that the government is thinking, in my view, in a correct way, is that they really see the need for increased productivity. There's a strong awareness in Vietnam that the productivity of the economy has to increase quite rapidly, I would say, in order to avoid the risk of the middle income trap, or call it whatever you like, but to just explain it easy, to avoid the fact that so many of the international companies that are here today will one of those days check out and go elsewhere. How do you keep them? And then I think to focus on research and development, to have the investors that come here also seeing, as we said in the beginning, the engagement and the capacity of the workforce of the Vietnamese people, and to bring in more research and development. And here I think the free traders of Vietnam, and this is a very important point from my perspective and from the Swedish government's perspective, government of Vietnam is showing that they believe in the multilateral system. They believe in international free trade, extremely important for economic growth and for the, I think, for the prosperous development on the whole globe, is to be open to each other. Sweden has always been a trading nation, and Vietnam is as well. And here, free trade agreements, and I hope that we will soon see a EU-Vietnam free trade agreement being signed and ratified.
Yes, he mentioned about FTA agreement Vietnam side. And what do you think about how to use FTA agreements effectively?
I think it just provides a lot of business opportunities, I think, and I think the challenge here is really for the government, I guess, to really look at the existing policy framework to see what more can be done, right? To create the right incentives for businesses to invest in potential enterprises that can capitalize on these future businesses. I think one area is innovation, right?
Yes.
And the Industry 4.0 readiness, right, to deal with these potential opportunities. So we're working with the government to prepare some analysis on how Vietnamese enterprises are ready, to meet these challenges. And this, report will also be released shortly. Right? And so there are different ways that we can work together. Development partners, UN agencies, the government, private businesses,
yes,
and youth groups. So, and I think the key is really to always look at opportunities, right, and to see, to experiment, to take risk, and to be willing to fail, right. And I think if we are not, afraid of we while keeping a very clear objective, right, of further development, I think we can do a lot together.
Yes, and on behalf of UN and UNDP, what do you plan to support Vietnam to get more investment from the private sector in sustainable development goals?
We can work with the government, on policy framework.
Yes.
Right? We can work with businesses on their understanding of the SDGs, so that they have incentives themselves to see SDGs as their business strategy, because by incorporating sustainability as part of their business strategy, right, they can, for example, save resources, right. They can enhance their social reputation, right. They can obtain better, customer loyalties, right? So there are many ways that a business will be incentivized, to pursue, a sustainability, strategy. We can also, as I said earlier, work with young people to generate more businesses and to crowd in more, private financing in these, potential businesses. I think one of the challenges, for Vietnam is, somehow to, bring many enterprises in the informal sector into the formal sector, and also to work with some of them, to incubate some of them from small business to larger businesses, so that they can access other markets in other ASEAN countries, right? And I think another challenge is that we can perhaps work together, to see how Vietnam can adapt successful innovations elsewhere, right, to Vietnamese context, so that Vietnam can leapfrog, some of the areas, right, of development. If you look at competitiveness, one measure is, how much a country invests in R&D, in research, yes, and development.
Yes.
The ASEAN average, Asian average is 0.5% of the GDP, whereas take a country like Japan. Japan is investing about 3% of the GDP in R&D, right?
Yes.
So instead of trying to catch up, we take some more time, right? But you can really adapt, some of the technology, to the Vietnamese context. But the adaptation also will require R&D, right? So there are different ways that we can work together to attract investment, to Vietnam and further develop its economy.
And we do hope in sustainable development process, the private sector will get more contribution, and the resource and the potential of the private sector will be used in the developing country like Vietnam. Thank you so much for coming to our roundtable program today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
The private sector must take its role even further in terms of innovation, investment, and engagement. Sustainable business must become mainstream, and companies must join in the Sustainable Development Goals process. Roundtable program will be on air at 3 p.m. Sunday and Tuesday, 7:15 p.m. Wednesday, and 10 a.m. on Friday weekly on Nhân TV channel. You can watch it on the website nhantv.vn or via YouTube Nhân TV. Thank you for joining us, and goodbye for now.